The name I have to use is Peggy Ann Dempsey. I married a Childers. I've put up here about who I really am. Margaret Ann Windsor, kidnapped in 41, brought to Moulton, Alabama, and given another name. The twins, where I was put on this pigsty farm, it was dirty abuse. You couldn't believe it. She killed her twins. This Lina Dempsey did. They were born out of wedlock. So I was put there, and I put all this up. And I didn't know about my kidnapping until late 1983, after I'd run in a political campaign to replace U.S. Congressman Dr. Larry McDonald. Dr. Congressman Larry McDonald from Atlanta, and I was flown out to Larry Flint's home. This is August of the 31st of 83. McDonald was on the KL that was went down in the ocean. It was en route from Juneau, Alaska to Seoul, South Korea. Nixon was taken off the plane. He was on that flight just prior to takeoff. So I really wonder if Larry McDonald was on the plane, Dr. Congressman, or they, so much was being told. I'd written a medical malpractice book, and it was about mind control. And all I'm going to put up here, I'm going to stop because I'm not sure I'm going to live. Pretty bad. People have lived good in this country. As long as they're living good, they don't feel the need to do anything until it's too late. And I've had them tell me they didn't care about me. They didn't care about my kidnapping, didn't care about learning about mind control. That was used on Larry Flint, a mind control person, programmed and under mind control, who was a victim himself. And this was used on George Wallace. The woman that I grew up with, that was the mother's twins, and I had to take the twin Peggy's name. She was with George Wallace when he was shot. He's in a wheelchair, just like, well, he's dead now, just like Larry Flint. He was paralyzed from the neck down. And these are program shooters like JFK. JFK was taken to Parkland Hospital in Dallas, and that connects with Parkwood in Atlanta, Georgia, and which is mental health facilities. They've grown big. Parkland in Dallas was a regular hospital. But anyway, the JFK connection, he helped in my kidnapping, and I found out in 83 about being kidnapped and who my father and mother are. And all I'm going to put here, because I'm in pretty bad shape right at the moment, I have no doubt that, anyway, in it, they're blaming the mental health facility. They're blaming on mental health, that these are crazy and behavioral problems and all this, which is a total lie. The school shootings are en masse, most of them, so they get attention by the press. The Illuminati that kidnapped me, Rockefellers, Rothschilds, Bilderbergers, Kennedys, Roosevelts, are the Illuminati, and they control your press totally. What they don't control, people are afraid of it. And I'm going to tell you what happened at Treetop Apartment. But first I'm going to say this, and then I don't know if I'm going to make any more videos or be able to. Everybody around here knows it. They know it in Huntsville, Alabama. That's where I worked for the district attorney in 80. And in Atlanta, Georgia, where I lived for so long and did the book. And they almost killed me April Fool Day of 80. I had a letter from the FBI, ongoing investigation, national security involved. When I lived at Treetop and I started doing the book, I'd worked for doctors and was working for doctors then. But I knew about murders that happened. I just didn't know how they were done. They were done like, we bought a house in Huntsville before we moved to Atlanta, and my husband worked for Lockheed Marietta, worked at Huntsville at Brown Engineering in the Space Center there. But anyway, I didn't, Larry Childress, which is Childers, and the Larry gets in all of, name is used so much, and I won't give background on that. But he sold us a house, and it wasn't 2 months, well, it was just a little bit later that he killed himself, turned the car on and let it run, and he died. He was in no mood to kill himself, so that it was mind control. I just didn't know the word for it back then, but there were quite a few other things that didn't ring true to me when they happened, but I didn't, So I'm just giving you that little bit of background to where I became aware of mind control murders, mind control being used. It has nothing to do with mental illness. And to blame the mentally ill for crimes done by mind control is so hideous. But the fact that they are now, and they're doing it local here, and I'm afraid to almost come back on tonight. The young fella he was a youngster, came to Cave Spring School here with a loaded gun. And they've been putting chips in root canals and in babies, and you don't like to believe it, but they have. Sometimes when they're born or in the early years. So they programmed the Parkland shooter and in Florida, and all the Aurora, Colorado, and all that. And they blamed him for being mentally ill, and he's not. You have to stop the programming and the mind control. And first of all, it's got to be addressed at the top level of government. Instead of saying we're going to put more policemen, or we're like tonight here on the news, since the Cave Spring today, they've decided to put officers or a person, school security, like an officer at every school. Supposedly this is to thwart these school shootings. You've got to address the mind control. The person that they put in that place, even a teacher, this is what you don't understand. They can come out shooting. It's not mental illness, mind control, and you got to deprogram, you've got to stop the mind control, instead of like Timothy McVeigh, who told you the Army put a chip up his buttocks. And he went on and did the Oklahoma City bombing and was put to death, by the way. And a lot of these, like the Virginia Tech shooter, was from South Korea, and they're programmed to shoot themselves. And it looks like, well, people, I can't believe that people are this. Well, first of all, the people are in here, like I've told you, the media all know it. They're not going to tell it. So anyway, this is the last I'm going to say, because I've been worked over myself here, and I've gone on when I was afraid anyway, and so much, but now it's come down to, anyway, when I found out the mechanism used, I was living at Treetop, and there was someone moved in next door to me, and he knocked at the door, and he said he just moved in and didn't have his phone in. Well, I'm trusting, so... And then when he used the phone, he said, I want to show you something. And I stood at the door, but he showed me, and he didn't have any furniture in or anything. And looking back, I shouldn't have walked in. But I mean, the places, Treetop Apartments, were relatively nice, and I didn't think I had anything to fear. And he didn't do anything, but looking back now, I wouldn't have walked in. But he showed me a ham set, and it was up against the wall. And he said, he told me how it's done. You teach people the Morse code at a low level of hearing that they aren't aware they're getting. And so I'm not going to go any further with it. Use your imagination. This was back in 76, and back, I worked, when I got out of high school, I worked for a wholesale company, electronics. But back then, they sold ham sets. I didn't know anything about it. I just did the bookkeeping and reception. So it was later, and this was in 76 that he showed me how it was done with ham sets. Well, I'm going to leave it because this is what they're into. If anybody said anything about satellites or communication satellites, or I've told you in the past the end to your home and everything, how you can get it. And the chips are put in root canals, like they were doing an autopsy on Paddock in the Vegas shooting, um, to find his motive. The motive is with the programmers. And you're blaming the wrong people. They're paying for crimes, but it's that they didn't do. They're victims themselves. So you can mass mind control armies. So it's gone way beyond, and I've been telling about it since 76. So in the media, and then I found out I'm kidnapped and who my father is and who did it, and flown out to Larry Flint's, and it was a program shooter that shot him. And I said, Governor Wallace, it was a program shooter, and the woman, Lina Dempsey, killed her twins, and where I grew up, she was in his campaign in Laurel, Maryland when he was shot. Now, he didn't like her. She imposed herself as a volunteer, but she was there when he was shot, and he was put in a wheelchair. And this was, you may not like him, I do. He was an honest man, and he wouldn't sell his soul. And so that's the price he paid, just like my dad. They used character assassination, and he wouldn't go along with the Illuminati, so take orders from him. So they took him out and kidnapped me, his only daughter, and that took out my mom, Claudia Ruth O'Keefe Windsor. So now then, I've been tossed from pillar to post, made a pauper, begging for a place to live, and I am going to stop now, because the point I've told you is they're doing all this like on the planes, and you think you're safe or safer because they're putting security on the planes. Your flight attendant, your pilot, your marshal that they're putting on the plane, they could be programmed. The pilot that took the KAL out that in Juneau, Alaska, had to have been programmed. Well, anyway, you can program the pilot to go into a mountain or the ocean or whatever, or veer into Russian airspace. So this has been going on a long time. It's just that for whatever reason, after I got the letter from the FBI, and I thought it was because of the book, and I find out later in '83 it's part of it's my kidnapping and who did it and who I am. So they've used the crazy card, like on O.J. Simpson. His nephew or cousin worked for the Los Angeles Police Department, and he tried to tell people that O.J. dreamed it. This is what they do with it. They teach you the Morse code, and you imagine, and they make it. If people who've told you that people couldn't be made to do things they didn't want to, is a total fabricated, biggest lie ever told. Now then, the question people are going to, whoever, if they listen to this, because all the media has known it since I came here, they're afraid of it. They have to have, well, I'm not, you can go to yourself, the advertisement and all this. And what would the world think if they knew if the United States was using mind control as a weapon? So there was something else I was going to say, but I wonder if I'm going to make it. I'm 79 years old. I don't know where my children are. We were separated deliberately. It's who my children are. And I didn't commit any crimes. They have been done to me, one right after another, and to my children, and to my mom and dad and my country. My mom was an American from Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin, sister to artist Georgia O'Keeffe. Now then, just here around me, and believe me, they all know. There, suddenly after the Cave Spring thing today, the kid took the loaded gun in. They're going to place a security guard at every school, and he could come out shooting, just like the pilot could. They're not immune to the mind control. They don't even know they're getting it. Now then, here's the last thing I'm going to say. They're using the crazy card in the mental health facility, and even Trump, I couldn't believe it. Trump said something about the mental health. This has nothing to do with it. It's a total different thing. It's a weapon they're using, and they're using the mental health now to where they sidetrack the court system, really, can go out and handcuff you and take you in. And you really believe them when they say you can walk out? You may be sane as anybody walking on the face of the earth, but if it's political, you'll never see the light of day. I promise you that. So, I've told you. And it really, the Illuminati, a church gave me a book, and I've told this by Jimmer Tex Mars. It's called Project Lucid, L.U.C.I.D. And it's about the end times. And Revelations is talking about mind control. It's talking about the Illuminati, the Freemasons, and the global government. Well, they're in place. And if you care to listen, they're already telling that everything, there's places now that aren't taking cash. So you're going to have a chip, which suddenly they're telling about chips vaguely and things, and chipping you and everything, and people's accepting it. And I'm trying to tell you, and this is on mind control is on, you can Google it on YouTube, everything. So you don't have to take my word for it. The only thing I'm doing is giving you a detail that of murders done in patterns. And it goes back to the Tesla files that were taken and stolen in 1930. You can create an illness or you can cure it. So you can autopsy for a motive. It's with the programmers. And you can, you might not autopsy while you're at it the rest of the body, like the root canals, and see if you can find a chip, because therein lies what you have to address to stop any of this. But it's gone so far now, I don't know.